Nozaki introduces himself, 31 years old and single, noting that people find him wild because of his name and appearance. He reflects on his current, bizarre predicament. He is nearly naked in a strange forest, a world away from his own. Chewing on some strange fruit, Nozaki wonders why things turned out this way. He remembers the moment of his death. He pushed a student out of the way of an oncoming truck, taking the impact himself. As his life slipped away, he mused on the cliché of reincarnation, questioning why such a thought would cross his mind then. Nozaki recalls waking up in a completely white, empty room, where a figure greeted him. A serene-looking being with long hair casually asked if he understood who they were. Nozaki could only stammer in disbelief. The being bluntly informed him that he was being reincarnated, adding that the decision was already made and not open for discussion. Nozaki was left stunned and confused by the sudden declaration. As he begged them to wait, the being simply said goodbye, a light glowing in their hand. The being becomes irritated when Nozaki calls them a pain in the ass. They explain that a contract with a previous god forces them to perform these reincarnations, which is why he is so much trouble. Nozaki grows frantic, feeling a sense of dread as he is about to be sent to another world without any explanation. The being confirms his thoughts about a world of levels, skills, magic and monsters, surprising Nozaki with their ability to read his mind. The being clarifies that he will not be reborn as a baby, but will be reincarnated with his current appearance. Nozaki protests that this is not reincarnation, but more like being transported on a trip. The being insists that since he is being given a new body suited for the other world, it is indeed a reincarnation. Nozaki panics upon hearing the worst news yet: there will be no cheat skills. The being waves a casual goodbye as Nozaki's protests begin. Having had enough of his annoying complaints, the being decides to send him on his way. Nozaki screams in protest as he is sent away. He is shown falling away into the vast, empty space. He sees sunlight dappling through the leaves above him. His eyes are wide with confusion as he takes in his new surroundings. Nozaki lies on his back in the middle of a dense forest, completely bare. Taking a moment to collect himself, he resolves to calm down and figure out what to do first. He fumes, cursing the god for his predicament, especially the lack of clothes. He climbs a large tree and is shocked to see the vast, unending forest stretching out before him. From his high perch, he understands that moving recklessly through this absurdly huge forest would be dangerous. He formulates a plan. His top priority is securing water, which will allow him to set up a base and gather supplies. But before any of that, he has a more immediate need to take care of. Nozaki fashions a makeshift straw skirt from tree bark to cover himself. He finds it uncomfortable, but admits that it is good enough for now. He's glad to have regained some dignity. With that sorted, he resolves to begin his survival efforts in earnest. He steps firmly onto the forest floor, ready for the challenge. The dense foliage makes travel difficult. Nozaki grows frustrated, wondering how he will ever find water. Suddenly, a faint rustling catches his attention. The sound he heard was like a small animal. He realizes that while his vision is limited in the dim forest, his hearing has become incredibly sharp, feeding him a constant stream of information about his surroundings. Focusing intently on the sounds around him, he continues to push through the undergrowth. He hears a distinct sound again. A look of certainty crosses his face as he realizes what it must be. Following the sound leads him to the edge of a flowing river. He rushes to the water's edge. Overcome with relief and joy, he splashes his face and celebrates his successful discovery. With a water source secured, Nozaki's next priority is shelter, deciding against staying too close to the river. He soon discovers a large, hollowed-out tree. He notes that it's a short walk away from the water. He decides it will be his new base. He finds a strange fruit and carefully tests it for poison by rubbing its juice on his skin, finding no reaction. He plans to take a small bite and wait to see if it's truly edible. Seeing plenty of potentially edible plants, he feels a glimmer of hope and plans to expand his diet. Now the only thing left is to make fire. Nozaki works tirelessly with a hand drill, grunting with effort as he tries to create a spark. Smoke begins to rise. He carefully nurtures the ember. As the campfire crackles to life, he gazes at it, thinking it is the most beautiful fire he has ever seen. Resting by the warmth of his new fire, Nozaki knows he will need a lasting food source like smoked meat. He resolves to start preparing for a hunt the next day, hoping to get some pelts as well. Suddenly, a strange, glowing panel materializes before his eyes. He stares at the panel which displays his status, level 1 with a single skill karate. He is initially shocked that his only ability is karate. However, he quickly smirks, deciding it is not bad at all and suits him perfectly. Embracing his new reality, Nozaki decides this is where he will survive. He puts his knowledge to the test, preparing for a hunt. He constructs a pitfall trap on a path to the river to catch herbivorous animals, though he is unsure if it will work. As he finishes, his sharp hearing picks up a noise, signaling that his trap might soon be tested. A strange, elephant-nosed rabbit appears in the clearing, its large ears twitching. Nozaki expresses his disappointment, feeling the trap he built is too small. The rabbit seems wary, sensing something amiss. A massive, clawed foot stomps onto the ground, shaking the earth. Startled by the heavy footsteps, the rabbit quickly flees into the bushes. Perched on a tree branch, Nozaki realizes that something is coming. His eyes widen in alarm as the disturbance grows closer. From a cave entrance, a group of goblins begins to emerge. 3 of them step into the open, looking menacing and carrying a small creature as their prize. Nozaki's face contorts in shock as he sees the creatures. He recognizes them as the classic fantasy monster, the goblin. He is amazed that they even make the stereotypical Jaya sound. He watches as the goblins head towards his location. A determined look appears on his face as he realizes this is an opportunity to gain experience. From above, Nozaki watches a goblin investigate the ground where his trap is hidden. He looks on in disbelief and confusion. The goblin sniffs the air, having detected something. Nozaki realizes his mistake. He failed to erase his smell, rendering the trap ineffective. The goblins easily uncover the trap and cackle mockingly at the attempt. They gather around the pit, seemingly amused by the primitive trap. Hearing their laughter, Nozaki snaps, his patience worn thin. With a determined leap, Nozaki launches himself from the tree branch. He curses his failed plan, his expression a mix of anger and resignation. He concludes that now that things have come to this, he has no choice but to carry on and fight. He lands with a powerful impact, striking one of the goblins. Nozaki's attack is brutal and decisive, instantly killing the first goblin. He coolly confirms his first kill. Another goblin watches in shock and horror as its companion is dispatched. He chides the second goblin for its slow reaction time. The goblin is stunned by the sudden, brutal assault. Nozaki delivers a powerful kick directly to the goblin's head. He counts his second victory. He resolves to quickly finish off the third and final one. The last goblin screams in terror, realizing the danger it is in. Nozaki analyzes the goblin's sloppy downward swing, noting it's full of openings, and tells himself to calm down. The goblin brings its club down with a heavy thud. Nozaki clenches his fist, preparing his counter. With a powerful shout, he strikes the goblin with a clean hit. He feels a sense of accomplishment, believing he has landed a decisive Seiken Zuki to the philtrum. He curses in disbelief, wondering if goblin vital points are different from a human's. Despite the powerful blow, the goblin is still standing and screaming in rage. The goblin begins to swing its club wildly, attacking blindly. Nozaki realizes he cannot approach with such clumsy attacks coming his way. He stumbles backward over a root, appearing to lose his footing. The goblin shrieks, taking the bait. Nozaki reveals he purposely left an opening. His goal was to lure an attack from the top. As the goblin brings its club down for the final blow, Nozaki readies his counter. He unleashes a powerful kiai, ready to strike. He brings his hand down in a precise knife hand strike. The blow connects perfectly with the back of the goblin's neck. The goblin hits the ground with a thud. Its body twitches for a moment before going limp. Nozaki brings his foot down to deliver a final, crushing blow. His expression is grim and focused. He confirms that this is the end for the creature. Nozaki stands over the bodies of the 3 defeated goblins. He trembles as the adrenaline from the fight begins to wear off. The reality of his victory slowly sinks in. He clenches his fist, realizing he won. He throws his arms up and lets out a roar of triumph, having won against the monsters. Later, he sits by a waterfall, contemplating his victory. He examines the spoils of war taken from the goblins. A system message appears, informing him that he has reached level 2 and his karate skill is available. He exclaims in excitement that he has leveled up. A confident smile spreads across his face as he realizes he can do this. He looks at his new surroundings with determination, ready to survive in this new world. He relentlessly pursues his prey through the forest, shouting for it to stop. He is determined not to let it escape. 3 months have passed since Nozaki arrived in this world, and he has fully adapted to the life of a survivor. His abilities have grown immensely. Now at level 8, his senses are so sharp he can anticipate his prey's every move. He lunges and successfully grabs onto the creature's leg. With his improved physical prowess, he tackles the creature, securing his next meal. While carrying his large catch, Nozaki spots something interesting. He makes another valuable find, a plant identical to chili pepper, useful for its restorative and sterilization properties. He decides to take as much as he can. As he gathers the peppers, his keen hearing picks up movement, and he quickly takes cover, spotting 2 goblins in the distance. The goblins are arguing noisily. Nozaki considers ignoring them, musing that despite having defeated 50 of them, he hasn't leveled up. He had even started to worry he was becoming the king of this forest. The goblins suddenly fall silent. A deafening roar echoes through the trees. Startled by the immense roar, Nozaki wonders what it was. He watches as the 2 goblins freeze in terror before a massive, intimidating silhouette emerging from the woods. An enormous, battle-scarred goblin-like creature steps into the clearing, wielding a crude but deadly axe. From his hiding spot, Nozaki realizes with a shock that this is a hobgoblin, an evolved and far more dangerous form. The smaller goblins tremble before the huge creature. They wonder if it has come to reprimand them for their quarrel. The hobgoblin grips its weapon tightly. To everyone's horror, the hobgoblin brutally slaughters one of the smaller goblins without a word. Watching from the bushes, Nozaki is struck with fear, realizing that for the first time since coming to this world, he has encountered a monster stronger than himself. The hobgoblin's gaze locks onto Nozaki's hiding spot. It lets out a furious roar, realizing it has found him. With his cover blown, Nozaki flees, the roles reversed. For the first time, he is the one being hunted. Nozaki dashes through the dense forest, trying to escape. The hobgoblin's massive size slows its pursuit, allowing Nozaki to gain some distance. Still, he knows he can't completely lose the creature, as its sharp sense of smell will make it impossible to shake. He realizes the forest is no longer safe, and that the hobgoblin will not give up. Knowing that fighting it alone is suicide, Nozaki decides he must leave. Shaken and cursing his own arrogance about being the king of the forest, he feels his body tremble. He makes his way back to his makeshift home one last time. He bids a silent farewell to the shelter that has kept him safe for the past 3 months. With a heavy heart, Nozaki turns his back on his home. He ventures into the unknown. His journey is fraught with weariness and constant vigilance. He travels for days, climbing steep cliffs. He continues navigating the unfamiliar woods. Finally, he finds a small, secluded pond where he can finally rest. He stops to quench his thirst. While resting, he is approached by a strange, 2-headed deer. As days pass, the isolation weighs on him. Taking shelter from the rain, he finds himself overwhelmed by a deep longing to find a city and see another human being. A large predator stalks nearby. Reacting instantly, Nozaki dives into a muddy swamp to conceal his presence. Emerging covered in filth, he realizes the swamp saved him. The near miss intensifies his desperate need for human contact. Suddenly, another sound puts him on high alert. Peeking from behind a tree, he wonders if it's another beast or a goblin. What he sees, however, is something else entirely. He looks on in surprise at the small creature. After days of desolate travel, Nozaki's search comes to an abrupt end as he spots a young girl foraging peacefully in the forest. She seems completely oblivious to his presence, focused on a small plant she has found. Nozaki is utterly stunned by the sight of another human being. The girl is startled by a strange noise and turns to see Nozaki making loud sounds and striking an intimidating pose. Mistaking his intentions, she screams in terror. Nozaki, trying to warn her away from what he thought was danger, is confused by her fearful reaction. Nozaki is shocked, shouting in frustration that she mistook him for a goblin. The terrified girl turns and flees into the woods. He laments that after finally finding another person, this is how they react to him. Suddenly, a familiar, terrifying roar echoes through the trees, startling him. He realizes the hobgoblin has caught up to him. Nozaki realizes the creature has been intent on killing him since the moment they met. He curses himself, concluding he must have wandered too deep into its territory. He is horrified to see the hobgoblin has captured the girl, but relieved she appears unhurt and demands her release. He shouts at the beast to get its attention. The hobgoblin turns, enraged by Nozaki's demand to get its filthy hands off the girl. Nozaki uses a vine to swing through the trees, launching himself towards the creature. He lets out a fierce battle cry as he flies through the air. He grips the vine tightly, preparing his attack. He swings around a large tree, building powerful momentum for his strike. The hobgoblin looks up in shock at the incoming aerial assault. He connects with a devastating flying elbow strike, smashing it directly into the hobgoblin's face. In a powerful, swift motion, Nozaki launches himself at the creature. Nozaki lands, steadying himself after the attack. He is shocked to see the hobgoblin is still standing after taking such a powerful blow. He quickly rushes to the girl's side, confirming she is okay. He tells her to leave the monster to him and just run, as the enraged hobgoblin prepares to attack again. As the girl flees into the safety of the woods, Nozaki stands as her shield. He turns to face the hobgoblin, steeling himself for the fight to come, knowing he has no other choice. Facing the enraged hobgoblin, Nozaki feels an immense pressure, unlike anything he has ever known. Though his instincts scream at him to flee, he stands his ground, determined to protect the girl he just saved. As the beast charges, Nozaki readies himself for the fight of his life. The hobgoblin swings its massive club, but Nozaki ducks underneath the powerful but slow attack. He sees an opening, recognizing that while the creature's blow is heavy, its wide swing leaves it vulnerable to counterattack. Nozaki's punch connects, but it feels like hitting stone. The hobgoblin's body is incredibly hard. The beast retaliates with an almost instantaneous blow. Realizing its muscles are too thick, he decides to aim for a softer target. Changing tactics, Nozaki aims a brutal kick directly at the hobgoblin's groin. The creature reels back, its face contorted in a silent scream of agony. The risky move paid off, creating a crucial opening. While the hobgoblin is stunned, Nozaki presses his advantage. He rushes forward, delivering a series of punches to the creature's head. He follows up by thrusting his fingers directly into the creature's eye, causing a sickening crunch. Blood pours from the hobgoblin's ruined eye, but its rage is far from extinguished. It swings wildly, forcing Nozaki to block. He is shocked by the absurd power the creature still possesses. The sheer force of the hobgoblin's strike sends Nozaki flying backward, crashing hard against a tree. He tumbles to the ground, battered and bruised. Staggering to his feet, Nozaki is shaken by the force of the blow he just took. He realizes he was foolish to underestimate the monster as it prepares to attack again. Vowing to exploit any weakness he can find, he begins to formulate a new plan. As he recovers, Nozaki notices the hobgoblin's left eye is completely crushed, giving it a blind spot. He begins to move, using the trees to circle into its blind side. Exploiting the blind spot, Nozaki launches a powerful high kick from the hobgoblin's right, aiming for its head. He puts everything into the attack, desperately hoping it will be enough to end the fight. The kick connects, but the hobgoblin withstands the blow and grabs him. In a horrifying turn, the monster lifts Nozaki and sinks its teeth deep into his shoulder. Nozaki screams in agony from the bite. As the hobgoblin's jaws tighten, Nozaki fears his arm will be torn off. Refusing to let it end like this, he defiantly moves to counter. He shoves his fingers into the monster's remaining good eye, gouging it out with a squish. The hobgoblin shrieks, blinded and in torment. Using the hobgoblin's moment of agony, Nozaki breaks free and delivers another kick. The momentum sends him crashing backward into a tree. Nozaki collapses against a tree, his shoulder mangled. His consciousness is fading, and he feels his end is near. As his hand slumps to the ground, it brushes against a familiar plant. He recognizes it as the incredibly spicy pepper of this world, which he recalls tasting once before. Distracted by the memory of the pepper, Nozaki wonders why he's thinking about such things now. The blinded hobgoblin roars as it stumbles closer. Nozaki looks up, bracing himself for death. A thought of the girl he saved gives him a final surge of determination. With the hobgoblin charging, he shoves the pepper into his mouth and begins to chew. He formulates a desperate last-ditch plan. The intense spice makes his eyes water, but his resolve is clear. As the hobgoblin lunges forward, Nozaki spits the chewed pepper mashed directly into its screaming mouth. The creature clutches its face, roaring in agony as the spice overwhelms its senses. Nozaki knows that if the pepper was bad for him, it must be like a balm for the hobgoblin. Seeing his chance, Nozaki plants his foot, preparing to end it. With the hobgoblin stunned and defenseless, Nozaki leaps forward, driving his knee into its jaw with all his remaining strength. Battered and exhausted, Nozaki stands victorious. The defeated hobgoblin is left a broken mess, its face a mask of pain and blindness. Using the last of his energy, Nozaki throws the creature to the ground. The effort completely drains him, and both combatants collapse. Lying on the forest floor, Nozaki stares up at the sky in a daze. He looks at the unmoving body of the hobgoblin, scarcely believing that he won. The adrenaline fades, and he realizes he can't move a single muscle. His vision begins to blur as he succumbs to his injuries and exhaustion. As he lies helpless on the ground, a faint voice calls out. It's the girl he saved, who has returned looking for him. She cautiously calls out, referring to him as Mr. Goblin. He recognizes her voice, but he's too weak to respond. His eyes refuse to stay open. Before he loses consciousness completely, his fading vision catches a glimpse of the nearby village. He also sees his humble shelter before everything goes dark. He opens his eyes to an unfamiliar wooden ceiling. His mind is hazy and confused as he tries to process his surroundings. He finds himself lying in a bed inside a simple room. He wonders aloud where he could possibly be. A sharp pain shoots through his body as he tries to sit up. Memories of the brutal fight with the hobgoblin flood back. Looking at his bandaged arm, he wonders if the child he rescued is the one who saved him. Looking out the window, Nozaki realizes he is in a human house. The thought is overwhelming. After months of surviving in the wilderness, he has finally reached civilization. He sits on the edge of the bed, overcome with the simple comfort of something he never expected to feel again. He wonders who might have given up this bed for him. As Nozaki suspiciously inspects the pillow, the door bursts open. The young girl he saved appears, calling him Goblin-san and expressing her relief that he is finally awake. Startled, Nozaki flings himself back, defensively insisting he was not smelling anything. The girl's expression turns serious as she urgently tells Nozaki he must escape immediately. She explains that the villagers are coming for him, intending to attack. Confused, Nozaki asks why they would do such a thing. Peering outside, Nozaki is met with a terrifying sight. A mob of angry villagers armed with crude weapons and pitchforks is approaching, their malice unmistakable. As a mob of armed villagers approaches, Nozaki demands to know what he has done and why they are so eager to kill him. The young girl explains that materials from a hobgoblin such as bones and skins are incredibly rare and can be traded for a very high price. Nozaki realizes with dawning horror that they are not there to punish him, but to kill him and harvest the materials from his kill. The leader of the mob orders his men to wait while he approaches the house. He pounds on the door, asking for it to be opened. He calls out for the village pharmacist. Inside, the girl frantically shushes Nozaki. She stands firm at the door, refusing to open it and pleading with the men to go home, vowing not to let them lay a single finger on her patient. The men outside question the pharmacist's loyalty, reminding her that her father is the mayor. They attempt to persuade her to open the door. Nozaki angrily mutters that he'll just kill the leader if things don't go well. The pharmacist scolds him, pointing out that it hasn't even been proven he killed the goblin and warning him not to try escaping out the back. She then hands him an ointment for his wounds, telling him to apply it at least 3 times a day. Nozaki is taken aback, wondering why she is worried about him when she doesn't even have a successor. With a grim expression, Nozaki tells the pharmacist that patients should keep quiet and listen. He overhears one of the men suggest killing both of them. Another man cautions that killing the pharmacist would be troublesome. The leader smirks, revealing his plan to secure their futures. He intends to take the woman and the drug with his father's permission. Nozaki gets up, stating that his wound isn't fully healed. He reasons that she is not qualified as a pharmacist and that it's important not to let an important patient escape into such a dangerous forest. The pharmacist apologizes for the treatment she's provided. She then looks at him sincerely, thanking him for saving her from the hobgoblins and asking him to be careful. Suddenly, Nozaki lunges for the door. His weakened body gives out and he stumbles. The pharmacist calls out and tries to block his path. He collapses to the floor, furious that he needs to get up now, after his rest is finished. He grits his teeth, cursing his own weakness. Having escaped the house, Nozaki struggles through the dark forest. He feels his physical strength draining faster than he imagined, and he's on the verge of collapsing. The pharmacist watches on, having noticed his departure. Back at the house, the villagers realize their prize has escaped, with the leader cursing that he woke up. The villagers curse the pharmacist, calling her a difficult woman for deceiving them. One of the men strikes her, accusing her of letting their prize get away. From his hiding place, Nozaki's eyes widen in shock at the scene unfolding before him. The leader screams for his men to find Nozaki, certain that he must still be close. He seethes with rage, making a crude threat about what he'll do when he catches him. The leader of the mob gives a vicious order to find and kill Nozaki. Nozaki's expression hardens with rage as he commits the moment to memory. He gets a small fire going in the darkness of the forest. He remembers telling the pharmacist, Yakashi's daughter, that her assessment of the situation was incorrect. She had worried that he, her patient, was escaping into a dangerous forest. She believed he was simply in a hurry to get away. He looks up at the stars, wishing he could be taken home. Staring at the full moon, he reaffirms his determination to return. He carries a bundle of leaves to furnish his new shelter inside a hollow tree. As he works, he reflects that this new base is growing well and is better than his previous attempt. After much digging, he finds what he was looking for. He realizes the vegetation in this world is quite similar to his own, which allowed him to deduce that yams would be present. He knows this food will sustain him for a while, which is vital since hunting is too dangerous with his injuries. He decides to store the food until nightfall. Inside his shelter, Nozaki examines his status. He sees that he has leveled up twice and feels he is getting stronger. While resting, he notes that he developed a new skill called Angry Waves after his encounter with the hobgoblin. He grimly considers that after fighting a hobgoblin, he now finds that the villagers are aiming for his life. He has learned that the people of this world are no different from those he knew before. He thinks about the examples he's seen of people who like him and people who do not. Ultimately, he accepts that they are all just human beings. But for those who harbor murderous intentions, he makes a grim decision: they will die. He realizes that he must prepare his mind for the coming conflict, not just his body. Lying in his makeshift bed, Nozaki questions if he is truly prepared for the fight. Meanwhile, the pharmacist has been captured and bound by the villagers. She looks on in terror at her captors. He is startled by a monstrous, salamander-like creature that lunges at him. He quickly overpowers it. Holding his catch, he assesses that it isn't much, but it will have to do for a meal. Finally able to eat some meat, Nozaki's thoughts drift. He recalls the remarks from a bland villager. He recalls that the girl who helped him had come to the village with the pharmacist and after his death inherited his cause. This left her isolated and without support. He resolves to help her, but reminds himself to focus on his recovery first. He believes he'll regain his full strength within a week. Before dedicating himself to healing, Nozaki sends a silent wish. He hopes she can stay safe until he can return. The scene shifts to a quiet watering hole in the forest, marking the passage of time as he recovers. 1 week later, the tranquility of the watering hole is broken. A pair of rabbits are startled. A figure caked in mud emerges from the murky water. He acknowledges that he isn't fully ready, knowing a person is a different kind of threat than a hobgoblin. Covered in his makeshift camouflage, Nozaki prepares to move. He wants to avoid a fight if possible. Steeling his resolve, he decides it's time. With his mind made up, Nozaki determines that it is time to go. He begins his approach toward the village. 2 guards are posted outside a building. The 2 guards outside talk amongst themselves, one questioning how long they have to wait, and the other believing their target isn't coming back. The first guard complains about their mayor but doesn't want any more trouble, expressing concern for the woman they are holding. As he suggests they check the back door, a mud-covered Nozaki scales the wall just behind them, having heard their entire conversation. A guard patrols a quiet courtyard with a scythe. Hidden nearby, a lookout is pleased that there are not many people around. A small rock is thrown as a distraction. The guard turns, confused by the sound. A brutish creature ambushes the unsuspecting guard from behind. From the shadows, Nozaki observes the unfolding violence. The lookout is shocked as the guard is taken down. Nozaki finds the woman he came to rescue tied to a post. She looks up, recognizing her rescuer. He asks if she's all right, and she seems stunned that he returned for her. Nozaki tells her with conviction that he has come to help and that they will escape together. The woman asks him to please untie her. While untying her, Nozaki is shocked when the woman says she will stay, and he asks why. Nozaki presses her for an answer. She explains that her patients are in the village and reassures him that the villagers are good people who will release her soon. Nozaki silently disagrees with her assessment of the villagers. The rope finally falls to the ground, freeing her. The woman stands, now free from the ropes. Nozaki notices the ropes on her arms are now loose. Suddenly, they hear the villagers shouting, realizing their prisoners are on the move. Terrified, the woman pleads with Nozaki to run, warning him that there are too many enemies. Nozaki considers the situation, likening the villagers to goblins. A villager suddenly smashes through a gate, ready to attack. However, the villager freezes, his expression turning to one of utter shock. Nozaki unleashes a devastating kick, sending the first attacker flying backward through the wall. Another villager is knocked off his feet by the force of the attack. Nozaki stands poised after delivering the powerful blow. The other villagers are stunned into inaction, witnessing Nozaki's overwhelming strength. Nozaki glares back at them, his gaze firm and unwavering. However, a new, more heavily armed group of men appears to confront Nozaki. With a crazed look, their leader screams the order to attack. The leader of the armed men declares that he was careless last time, but he will not let Nozaki escape again. Meanwhile, one of the leader's men, who is bound and kneeling, vows to kill the bastard responsible. Nozaki offers the man a chance to live if he accepts his request. The leader scoffs at the notion of taking a request from him. Nozaki lays out his terms: they must stop harming Yakushi's daughter, confess their actions and apologize. The leader angrily rejects the offer, telling Nozaki to suck it. With negotiations failed, the leader orders his men to kill Nozaki. Nozaki finds the men's posturing tiresome. He shouts the name of his technique, Seitsu, preparing to strike. His fist connects with one of the men's faces with devastating force. Nozaki watches with wide-eyed intensity. The man crashes violently to the ground, silenced. The remaining men are stunned, but their leader resolves to fight on. Nozaki clenches his fists, noting the tactile feeling of the impact. The leader panics, shouting and questioning why his subordinate came to a fight unprepared. He calls out to his fallen man, Philip, who he believes to be his prey. He angrily demands to know what Philip wants, calling him an idiot. Another man checks the body and realizes the horrifying truth: Philip is dead. An onlooker screams in disbelief that Nozaki has killed Ruben. Nozaki's mind races as he processes the fact that he has killed someone. Staring at his blood-speckled fist, he wonders if humans are really so fragile. Nozaki's expression hardens as he rationalizes the killing, telling himself he isn't shocked and that the man was just a waste of space. A blonde-haired man stares in disbelief, noting that Nozaki didn't even use a weapon. Now surrounded, Nozaki takes a fighting stance. He faces off against the remaining armed men. He assesses the 8 enemies, noting their mix of proper weapons and farm tools, confident that his skills will allow him to win if he can just land his punches. Nozaki considers his options, realizing he must be careful of weapons and find something else to rely on besides his raw abilities. He feels that in close quarters, the unique physics of this world will make his movements difficult to track. Suddenly, the blonde-haired man lunges at him. Anticipating Nozaki's close-range prowess, the man decides to use a shield. The 2 men face each other in the clearing. The blonde man screams for Nozaki to die as he lunges. He thrusts his sword forward, aiming for a finishing blow. Nozaki's eyes widen in surprise at the speed of the attack. The blonde man smirks as Nozaki seemingly makes the foolish move of kicking his shield. However, the man's expression shifts to one of bewilderment as Nozaki executes a swift, unexpected pivot and follow-up kick. The blonde man can only cry out in disbelief as Nozaki's foot bypasses his shield with impossible speed. The powerful kick connects squarely with his head, the impact shattering his shield and sending him reeling. Sent flying by the blow, the blonde man collapses, his eyes rolling back as he wonders what kind of kick just hit him. Nozaki, catching his breath, identifies it as a Brazilian kick. Seizing the opening, another enemy lunges forward with a spear, determined to strike Nozaki down. The spear tip narrowly misses Nozaki as he dodges. More enemies converge, with 2 spearmen pressing the attack from the front. The spearman leading the charge grins, ready for a fight with the tough guy. Meanwhile, another man recovers and raises a sword to strike from behind. With sharp focus, Nozaki pivots to face the swordsman. He intercepts the man's attack, getting inside his guard. Using the man's own momentum, Nozaki executes a powerful throw, sending his sword flying through the air. The swordsman is sent crashing hard to the ground. As Nozaki stands over his downed opponent, the spiky-haired man watches in disbelief. He curses at his cowardly comrades who hesitate in fear. Nozaki prepares himself, believing he can win in a single step. The spiky-haired man turns his attention back to Nozaki, vowing to give him a bad day. The spiky-haired man thrusts his spear, but Nozaki catches the shaft, shocking his opponent. The man yells for him to let go and pulls back with all his might. Nozaki digs in his heels, promising to give it his all. He is dragged towards the edge of a steep incline. Nozaki presses his advantage, dodging a staff swing to land a powerful punch on his attacker. With grim determination, his bare fist connects with a sickening thud, ending the confrontation. The remaining men are left rooted, some are sick on the ground. Others flee in terror, calling him a monster. Nozaki stands victorious, wondering who they are referring to. He announces that he has taken care of them and calls out for Philip. Suddenly, a well-dressed older man stumbles upon the scene, asking what happened and frantically calling for his son. The man finds his son's body amongst the defeated. He turns to Nozaki, his face twisted in grief and rage, and accuses him of being the killer. Nozaki stares back intently, realizing this must be the one in charge. The leader screams for someone named Hegot to kill Nozaki. He adds that he has been feeding Hegot for this very moment. A voice from within a suit of armor confirms he is aware. The armored man, Hegot, explains that he was banished by his feudal lord father. He declares that he will now repay the kindness shown to him. The imposing knight identifies Nozaki as an intruder and vows that he will do well as rust on his blade. Nozaki braces himself, recognizing he's now facing an opponent in full plate armor. Nozaki faces his new opponent, a knight in full plate armor. He internally questions what he should do, recognizing this is entirely different from the rural thugs he fought before. The knight's stance is flawless, with no apparent gaps in his defense. Drawing on experience acquired from his combat training, Nozaki concludes that this man is a strong and formidable adversary. Nozaki considers trying to turn the fight into a battle of attrition, but knows he is deep in enemy territory. His thoughts are interrupted by the village mayor shouting orders, demanding that even women and children be armed to kill him. Taking a moment, Nozaki focuses on controlling his breathing to calm himself. Deciding against a reckless charge, Nozaki returns to basics and analyzes his opponent for any weakness. He notices the knight's center of balance is strange. It seems possible he is trying to cover his left leg. The movement reminds Nozaki of his own past meniscus injury. He recognizes the knee's vital role in combat and suspects he has found an opening. Nozaki slowly circles the knight. He believes a wide lunge is now a viable attack and invites the knight to come at him. He taunts his opponent, asking if the great knight is scared of him, a man who is naked and weaponless. The knight remains still, watching him intently. Taking the bait, the knight plants his foot and lunges forward, thrusting his sword directly at Nozaki. Nozaki narrowly avoids the deadly strike, the flat of the blade scraping across his forehead as he ducks under the attack. He realizes with a chill that if the knight's knee had been healthy, he would have been killed. But his goal was never to meet the attack head-on. As the knight tries to recover, Nozaki dives low, aiming for his true target, the injured leg. With the knight on the ground, Nozaki applies a hold to the vulnerable leg. He screams that no amount of armor can strengthen a person's joints. With a savage cry, Nozaki climbs atop the knight, seizing his helmeted head. He grips the helmet tightly. With a powerful twist, he breaks the knight's neck. The knight's body goes limp, his sword falling uselessly to the side. Nozaki stands over the fallen knight, catching his breath before checking for a pulse. He grimly acknowledges that the day he had to snap a person's neck has truly come. He thinks it's all over. But a sharp glance tells him it's not. Struck with shock, the village mayor stumbles backward. Nozaki approaches the village mayor, the man who ordered his death. As his pleas turn to chatter, he begs for his life. Nozaki coldly reminds him that this slaughter was what he wished for. The mayor's fear turns to rage, and he vows to curse Nozaki and drag him to hell. Nozaki dryly states he is an atheist, though he briefly recalls meeting a god. The mayor, confused, laments that the pharmacist's daughter ever saved Nozaki. Having heard enough, Nozaki decides he doesn't want to talk anymore. A scream echoes as he ends the mayor's life. Standing over the body, Nozaki reflects on the events. He states that they started it, stole the hobgoblin's materials and harmed the girl. He's startled by a voice calling him Mr. Goblin and remembers the girl is still tied up. The girl runs towards him, relieved that he is fine. He asks how she escaped her ropes, and she explains that another patient noticed the danger and helped her. She adds that she heard his last conversation with the mayor and tells him it's fine if he doesn't want to talk about it. Nozaki tells her that because of how things ended up, they need to leave the village as soon as possible. The girl earnestly pleads for him to take her along. She explains that with this incident, her strength is no longer needed and she would only be a hindrance if she stayed. Nozaki realizes she is right. The villagers now see her as his ally, making her a target of their fear. He understands that his anger has left her homeless. He tells her to pack her things, offering to carry her luggage. She seems to have packed quite a lot. With everything settled, Nozaki decides it is time to go. As they stand on a rooftop, overlooking the village they're leaving behind, the girl turns to him with a smile and tells him, "Let's go, Goblin-san." Nozaki feels he will probably never forget her expression in that moment. They walk away from the village. She informs him that after a few more hours, they will leave the forest and reach a main road with inns scattered along it. The girl is shocked to hear that Nozaki lost his memories in the forest, her eyes wide with sympathy. He recounts how he was mistaken for a goblin. She playfully asks whose fault that was. Their light-hearted banter continues as they journey on. Nozaki is surprised to find that, even after everything that has happened, he thinks traveling together is super fun. The girl mentions that her older sister and younger brother live in Rock Cliff, about 2 weeks away. Nozaki realizes he can talk to her so comfortably because she resembles someone from his past. 3 days later, sitting by a fire, he grimly thinks to himself that he messed up. Having misjudged the time and missed an inn, they are forced to camp for the night. While on watch duty, Nozaki decides to check his status. He recalls the girl saying people use a church's device to check levels. This means his ability to do so himself is abnormal, and he resolves to be more careful about using it. He commands his status to open. He is shocked by what he sees. His level has risen to 15 and he now has titles, Evo Goblin and Monster. He has also gained 2 new skills, Sense Presence and Conceal Presence. He reels from the new titles, wondering if he is now considered a new species of goblin. He suspects the god he met is messing with the system and its titles. He concludes that the title of Monster must be the karma he gets for killing a person. He realizes his level jumped from 10 to 15, meaning all the EXP was gained from the humans he killed. The implications of level inflation during a war feel ominous. The girl, having woken up, overhears him muttering about war. Nozaki wonders if that means it would be simple to reach level 100 in a war. She reassures him that it won't happen. She explains that when members of the same species kill each other, they are unlikely to get any experience points. She continues, saying that God is merciful and compassionate. However, the system makes it safer to earn experience by killing other species rather than hunting monsters, which has led to repeated wars. Noticing Nozaki is trembling, she asks if he is unwell. A horrifying realization hits Nozaki. The girl said that when the same species kill each other, the EXP gain is next to nothing, yet when he killed people, his levels went up considerably. As his shadow stretches out looking monstrous, he asked himself what he is exactly. The title Monster flashes in his mind. He looks up to the sky, unable to laugh at the cruel joke. The girl, seeing his distress, asks if he needs some medicine. The two of them continue their journey along the path by the river. He reflected on the dangerous truth he'd discovered. Unlike others, he gains experience points from killing humans. This brands him as something not quite human, a potential threat that would be disposed of if found out. His troubled thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a high-pitched scream from outside his room. Startled, Nozaki found himself in the wrong room, face to face with a shocked young woman wrapped only in a towel, who demanded he get out at once. He apologized, explaining he was lost in thought as she shoved him out of the room. Later, Nozaki and the girl shared a meal at the inn's clamorous cafeteria, noting they would finally reach Rock Cliff the next day. They raised their mugs in a toast to their safe journey. Watching her eat with gusto, Nozaki felt a sense of relief that their travels were almost over. Nozaki silently resolved to stop growing fond of her and teased her about getting fat. She dismissed his teasing, saying it was a celebration, but he couldn't shake the feeling that staying with her would only bring her misfortune. Despite their light-hearted laughter, his internal conflict remained. The next day, the impressive walled city of Rock Cliff came into view. The girl excitedly pointed towards their destination, exclaiming she could see it. Nozaki confirmed that it was indeed Rock Cliff. They made their way towards the city gates. As they got closer, Nozaki was impressed by its imposing structure, and the girl explained that the city now thrives on trade. When their turn for inspection arrived, the guards called them forward. Nozaki grew anxious, worried about a potential wanted notice for the incident at the village. However, the girl presented a letter to the guards, explaining it was from her elder sister apprentice. Recognizing the name, the guards waved them through with a friendly farewell. Nozaki was stunned by how easily they entered, and the girl explained that Clairn is the adopted daughter of the feudal lord, Earl Megan. She added that it's rare to find someone who goes to such lengths to become a valued apothecary. Nozaki was taken aback by the bustling city streets. He realized the variety of people helped him blend in. The girl called out to him, urging him to hurry. He felt like a country bumpkin. The girl led him to a large residence. Outside, a woman with long black hair was bidding farewell to an elderly man. She recognized her and called out, identifying her as older sister Claire. Belle rushed forward and embraced Claire, who was relieved but also chided her for the sudden and startling appearance. Nozaki approached awkwardly, unsure of what happened. After the situation was explained, Claire's expression hardened as she understood. She thanked Nozaki for bringing Belle safely. She then told a tired Belle to go inside and rest. As Claire led Belle away, she called for Nozaki to follow. Nozaki stood still, not moving. Belle looked back at him, confused by his hesitation. He understood that this was it for him, this is where they would part ways. Claire revealed the village mayor Nozaki killed was the illegitimate son of a previous feudal lord and that he should be careful. He gave her a simple thanks for the information. As Belle tried to protest, wanting him to stay, he began to turn away. Claire insisted he was leaving for Belle's own sake, and that she should understand. Nozaki simply told Belle to take care. A tearful Belle wished Nozaki well in return, telling him to take care too. With their goodbyes said, Nozaki turned and walked away alone, leaving the two women behind. Alone in the city, Nozaki sat by a fountain for a moment. He slapped his cheeks to refocus. He reminded himself that it was not time to feel down, he was still in the midst of survival. He got up, deciding to ask a nearby man for directions. He knew he should have gone to a more distant region, but to do anything, he needed money first. He resolved to become an adventurer here. He soon found his destination. It was the Adventurers Guild, a staple of any fantasy world. He stood before the heavy doors. Taking a breath, he prepared himself. He announced his intention to enter. He pushed open the heavy doors, ready to begin the next chapter of his new life. He momentarily imagined a warm welcome from a beautiful receptionist, a common trope in the RPGs of his old world. A friendly woman welcomed him to the Adventurers Guild. His fantasy was quickly shattered by the sight of the man at the registration desk. The man asked gruffly if there was something on his face, to which Nozaki replied there was nothing. When Nozaki confirmed he was there to register, the man pointed to a form telling him to sign. He added that a simple mark would do, as what was important was the ability to do the job, not to write. The guild was located inside a bar, and at this time only other guild members were present. As expected, they were all adventurers with dangerous-looking faces. Nozaki sensed their eyes on him the moment he walked in and knew he couldn't be careless. He noted one man in particular seemed dangerous. A man with slick-back blonde hair quietly asked his companion, a boy named Kimman, for his opinion on the newcomer. The boy stared intently at Nozaki. Kimman muttered that he didn't like him. His stare provoked a large, muscular man nearby, who glared back, asking what the impudent brat was staring at. The blond man watched with detached amusement, remarking that it had started. The large, bald man rose to his feet, brandishing a massive axe. He bellowed a threat, declaring he would crush Kimman. Trembling with anger, Nozaki confronts a large adventurer, asking what he is staring at. He glares down at the man, calling him an impudent little bitch. He squares up against his opponent, a bald man of immense size, and internally notes his formidable stature. The large man, Gans, is restrained by his blonde-haired companion, calling him an annoying bastard. Another adventurer tells them to take their fight outside, while Nozaki inwardly regrets being so direct. He berates himself for making an uproar on his first day, especially against someone who looks so strong. Gans accepts the challenge, feeling he has no choice. Nozaki prepares for a lethal strike, seeing no other way out of the confrontation. However, instead of fighting, Nozaki suddenly switches tactics, launching an ass-kissing onslaught, apologizing profusely. He bows deeply to the large man. Gans is left utterly confused by the sudden change in demeanor. Nozaki continues his praise, explaining that he felt an abnormal aura from Gans the moment he entered the guild. Two other adventurers watch the strange scene unfold. Nozaki inwardly boasts that no one has ever dodged his flattery onslaught before. Gans, still holding him, tells him he talks too much. Nozaki begins to worry that his flattery has no effect on seasoned adventurers. However, Gans's blushing face reveals the truth. The praise is super effective. Nozaki is pleased with how easily he manipulated the man. Gans, completely won over, offers to buy him a drink as a sign of friendship. 2 hours later, Nozaki is passed out drunk on a table. Nearby, another adventurer remarks on their general's magnificence to a man with slick-back blonde hair. The blonde man introduces himself as Al. Nozaki, now calling himself Yajin, greets him back, though he remains cautious of Al's unsmiling eyes. Al notes Yajin's unfamiliar name, finding him sharp and worthy of caution. Yajin explains his unusual name and appearance are because his grandmother was a slave from a faraway place. He reflects that Hitoshi Nozaki died the moment he came to this world. Al explains that his younger sister was sold into slavery. He introduces his quiet companion as Kimman, advising Yajin not to mind his taciturn nature. Yajin offers an awkward greeting. Meanwhile, Gans has already disappeared with some harlots. Yajin asks Al if he could tell him about the surrounding region. He admits that because his mother was a former slave who never left her village, he knows little of the world. Al agrees and retrieves a map. He spreads out a map of the region's subnational groups, indicating where Rock Cliff is located. Yajin grows excited at the prospect of a wider world to explore. Al points out the sacred forest country to the north. Al details the neighboring kingdoms, Aslart to the west, Krizar to the east, and Marianino to the south. Yajin makes a mental note that the closest border is to the west. Al describes the Megad Empire as an enormous nation, a nice place to live if you're an ordinary citizen. Al then begins telling a story about a beast man. The story sparks Yajin's interest, and he expresses a desire to visit this monster heaven. They part ways with a simple good night. Al calls out to Yajin as he leaves. He thanks Yajin for an enjoyable night, admitting he's taken a liking to him. As Yajin walks away, he can't shake a feeling of suspicion. Yajin returns to his room. He empties his coin purse. He realizes he doesn't have much money left and needs to find a way to earn more quickly. His mind drifts back to when he gave money to Belle. He had refused to take the money, planning to sell what he'd hunted, but she insisted. Belle had questioned why he was being so unreasonable, insisting he would need money to live. He remembers telling Belle it wasn't a gift. She had playfully agreed, promising to return twice the amount. The memory causes him to curl up in anguish. The sounds of Gans's revelry from another room only add to his misery, and he tells himself to shut up. The next morning, Yajin washes his face at a well. He decides it's too dangerous to act alone with his limited knowledge and that there's only one action he can take. Confident from the impression he made yesterday, he sets off with determination. He returns to the guild, where he finds Gans and Al. Yajin stands before them and makes his request clear. He wants to be added to Big Bro Gans' party. He declares his desire to become an adventurer like them, seeing it as his only path forward. Gans is shocked, accusing Yajin of wanting to leech off them. Al intervenes, reminding Gans that Yajin is from a rural area. He asks Yajin if he knows about base value. Al explains the 5 stats that represent a person's abilities, noting that strength and endurance are most important for an adventurer. Al elaborates that stats are determined by one's base value and level, and a low base value can limit one's potential. Yajin processes this and asks how exactly the base value is decided. Al explains that the crucial base values for strength and endurance are determined by one's physique at birth. He points out that other than Kimman, all the adventurers in the guild are taller than Yajin. Gans adds that this level ceiling is why their party, despite being the strongest in Rock Cliff, is stuck at level 6. Al tells Yajin that unless he has a special talent like Kimman, he'll never have a place with them. Yajin asks about special talents, determined not to give up. Al explains that skills suitable for one's occupation are also a major asset. He reveals they are searching for a specialized scout with the sense presence skill, which is exceedingly difficult to acquire. Gons notices Yajin spacing out and snaps him back to attention. Yajin stuns them by claiming he possesses the scout skill tree, including sense presence and conceal presence skills. The others are shocked into silence. Al remains skeptical, stating that they can't just take his word for it. Gons grins, declaring that is why Yajin will have to demonstrate his abilities in practice. Yajin reflects on the chaotic spectacle that followed. First, Kimman used his judgment to pick out some armor for him. Then Gons threatened the shopkeeper. Finally, Al, seeing an opportunity, began haggling with a devilish smile. The shopkeeper tearfully gives him the equipment, and Yajin obtains his first set of gear. He was able to buy it at a terribly affordable price. He approaches the group and apologizes to Gons. He expresses his gratitude for the chance to take the test and for their help in sorting out his equipment. Yajin laughs, promising to pass the test so their efforts won't be for nothing. Gons gives him a hearty smack on the back, telling him not to worry if he fails. He jokes that he'll just retrieve the armor from Yajin's dead body and sell it for money. Alone, Yajin stands in his new armor, knowing the test is tomorrow and that he should sleep well. He steels his resolve, accepting the harsh reality of this world and declaring that he's fine with it. The next day, the party of 4 departs from the city of Rock Cliff. They venture out into the wilderness. Fully equipped, Gons, Al, Kimman, and Yajin walk together, a newly formed party heading towards their trial. Gons's face is set with grim determination. Al appears calm but focused. Kimman looks onward with a neutral expression. Yajin, however, looks weary, admitting to himself that he couldn't sleep at all. The party of 4 adventurers travels through a rocky landscape on their first mission together. Al reads the details from a request form. The request is for the subjugation of a grey wolf that has been attacking livestock, with the client asking for its complete extermination. Yajin notes that the mission seems like a good deal. He wonders why such a seemingly simple request was left over. Al explains that the grey wolves hunt in large, dangerous packs, which is why other adventurers avoided the quest. Finally understanding the true danger of the request, Yajin grows serious. Soon after, he spots their destination in the distance, the village that posted the request. Upon arriving at the village, the party is met with a grim scene. Another animal has been killed by the wolves just that morning. Yajin observes the downtrodden villagers, noting this is the 3rd attack this month. A young girl named Mia approaches her grandfather. She solemnly asks if they should make a grave for the creature. The little girl, Mia, cries for her cherished sheep, Meru. The villagers plead with the adventurers for help, fearing their home will be destroyed. Al maintains a professional calm, telling them they must first hear the details of the situation. He instructs his party to wait as he goes to negotiate. Al discusses the terms, ready to refuse if anything seems amiss. The rest of the party stands guard, remaining vigilant. A villager asks Yajin why they are so wary, noting that they seem like nice people. Gons later approaches and asks Yajin about his puzzled expression. Al returns and confirms they will take the job, stating the monsters come from the East Forest. As they leave, Al gives Yajin a stern lesson. He warns that requesters sometimes lie to lower the commission, and if they are caught in a predicament, it is their own fault. Yajin understands Al's point. In this tough world, suspicion is more valuable than pity. The party reaches the edge of the forest. Yajin feels the mission is about to truly begin. Gons instructs him to act as scout and find the wolves' den. Al adds a critical warning. He must constantly use his conceal presence skill, as being discovered would mean certain death. Yajin prepares to set off. Kimman tells him to show them what he's got. Gons adds that this is a sign of appreciation from his seniors, as Yajin will be relieving Kimman of this duty. Yajin enters the forest. He feels strangely out of place, as if in a stranger's house. He quickly shakes off the feeling, reminding himself the forest isn't his home. He recalls that grey wolves likely have a keen sense of smell. He decides his first step is to mask his scent using local plants. He finds a familiar mint-like plant that grows in abundance. He scrubs it all over his body to mask his scent. Satisfied with the result, he plans to bring some back for the others. With his scent concealed, he focuses his mind, activating his sense presence skill at full power. Using his skill, Yajin can vaguely sense the presence of animals, but it's not enough to pinpoint a specific monster. He then remembers Al's words, The wolves move in packs of 5 or 10, which should make their collective presence easier to detect. To confirm his senses, Yajin begins searching for physical evidence. He finds large animal footprints, confirming a group passed through. His sense presence skill activates, clearly showing 5 presences clustered together. He's found them. Inside a dark cave, the pack of grey wolves rests. Peeking through the foliage, Yajin watches as he confirms he has found their den. After Yajin returns and reports his findings, the party observes the den from a distance. Gans grips Yajin's shoulder, praising him for a job well done. Al asks what they should do. He confirms with Yajin that there are only 5 enemies. With a confident grin, Al decides they will put on a show and demonstrate their true strength. He tells Yajin, the newcomer, to watch from a high-class seat. Al outlines the plan. They will approach stealthily downwind, and Yajin will give the signal to begin the battle. Yajin monitors the wolves' presences. The second one turns towards them, and he shouts an alert that they are incoming. He specifically calls out to Kimman. Kimman, the hooded archer, instantly draws his bow and takes aim. One of the wolves steps forward, alerted to their presence. The arrow strikes true, hitting a wolf squarely in the neck. As the beast yelps in pain, Gans charges forward to engage the rest of the pack. With a powerful war cry, Gans attacks. He swings his massive axe, decapitating one of the charging wolves in a single brutal blow. As 2 more wolves bark and lunge at him, Gans heaves his axe. He fells another wolf with a powerful swing. Yajin watches from the bushes, amazed that Gans has taken down 2 enemies with just 2 attacks. Yajin notices that Gans's powerful swings are too large, leaving him vulnerable. Just as a wolf lunges to exploit an opening, Al steps in and blocks the attack with his shield. Watching them fight, Yajin begins to understand their synergy. Al covers the large openings created by Gans's attacks. Meanwhile, Kimman's precise archery dampens the enemy's mobility, creating opportunities for Gans. A wolf, already wounded and staggering from Kimman's arrows, is an easy target. Gans delivers the final booming blow. Yajin is left amazed by their teamwork. In awe, Yajin realizes he is witnessing the might of Rock Cliff's strongest party. With all 5 wolves defeated, the battle is over. Yajin can only marvel at how they took out 5 enemies in a flash. Gans quickly snaps him out of it, reminding the newcomer that his job isn't finished yet. After the battle, the party dismantles the wolf corpses by the river for materials, with Kimman teaching Yajin the process. They return to the village at dusk, and upon the villagers' recommendation, decide to stay the night. At dinner, a villager praises Yajin, relaying that Gans thought he was great for finding the den. Yajin, embarrassed, insists he didn't do much. The young girl, Mia, gives Yajin a heartfelt thank you. Her grandfather chides her for calling Yajin uncle. Yajin just laughs, admitting it stings a bit. He feels a sense of accomplishment, knowing the villagers can now live without fear. With this, his debut battle as an adventurer comes to a safe and successful end. The next day, Yajin heads to the Rock Cliff Adventurer Guild. Inside, his party members are enjoying a laugh. His heart pounds with excitement for what's to come. Al hands Yajin his long-awaited reward for the Grey Wolf mission. Yajin gratefully accepts his portion. He is surprised by the amount, but Al assures him it is enough to live comfortably for a week. Gans insists he earned it, explaining that the preemptive strike was only possible because of him. Al tells him to enjoy his day off, as they have work again tomorrow. Left alone after his party members disperse into the city, Yajin is unsure of what to do. He reflects on the intense mental pressure of an adventurer's job, even just watching from the sidelines. With his stomach grumbling, he decides he needs to find some solace, just like the others. A waitress presents him with a large roasted bird. He gratefully prepares to eat, amazed at the sight. He digs in with relish. Yajin declares it the best food he has eaten in this world. The waitress asks the guild newbie how it tastes, reminding him that such fine meat and vegetables are quite expensive. Yajin proudly declares he's decided to spend his money on food, since an adventurer's body is their capital. The waitress chuckles, noting most adventurers prefer alcohol and women for comfort. She explains that livestock are often hunted by monsters and vegetables are heavily taxed, making good food a difficult luxury to obtain. She winks, telling him that if he wants to eat well, he will have to earn his money. And earn it he does. On a subsequent mission, Yajin, now clad in armor, acts as bait, leading a large bird-like monster. The party works in concert, taking their positions. Al signals to Kimman. who prepares to fire his bow. An arrow zips past Yajin, striking the monster chasing him right in the eye. Yajin continues to run as Gans moves in to support him. Gans finishes the creature with a mighty swing of his axe. Since then, Yajin has grown accustomed to the rhythm of their hunts. Having completed several requests, Yajin has developed smooth coordination with his party. He continues to prioritize his health with balanced meals. Al laments that most of Yajin's earnings disappear into food expenses. But Yajin is firm that health, fueled by protein, vitamins and fiber, comes first. Gans simply thinks he is a strange guy. Gans gets into an argument with another patron. Yajin asks him why he can only count to 10. Gans shouts that it's because he only has 10 fingers. Amused, Yajin points out that if he used his toes, he could count to 20. Gans is stunned into silence by this simple, yet revolutionary idea. Gans is amazed by the revelation and vows to practice counting with his toes. Meanwhile, Yajin, feeling full and content, leaves the tavern. He looks out over the city, reflecting that he has grown used to life in Rock Cliff. One day, the party reviews a new request for grey wolves. Al confirms the request is the same as last time, subjugation of 5 grey wolves. Gans recalls their last encounter was an easy win with a good reward and asks the others what they should do. Arriving at the client's village, they are greeted by an elder who thanks them for their swift arrival. As Al begins to get the details of the situation from the elder, Yajin silently hopes the villagers are doing as well as they were last time. The party waits for their scout to return. Yajin comes running back from the forest. He reports that he has found the den, but his grim expression indicates there is a problem. Yajin explains that this time, the den's entrance is too overgrown to fight in. He suggests luring the wolves to a clearing he found. Al protests, arguing that baiting grey wolves is far too dangerous. Yajin insists he is faster than anyone and asks them to trust him. He argues that being a decoy is an important job for a scout. After a moment of hesitation, Al agrees to the plan. Al watches him go, silently urging him not to die. With the plan set, Yajin prepares the bait. He creates a blood trail to lure the wolves out of their den. He steels himself for the chase. Glowing eyes appear in the darkness of the cave. The wolves take the bait, emerging from their cave. They begin to follow the trail left by Yajin. Yajin turns to run, ready to begin the chase. Yajin sprints through the dense forest, the pack of grey wolves hot on his heels. He pushes himself to maintain the lead. He leads them through the woods, heading directly for the clearing where his party lies in wait. In the clearing, Al, Gans and Kimman stand ready. Their faces are tense with anticipation. As time passes, Al begins to worry, noting that Yajin is late. Suddenly, Yajin bursts from the tree line. He successfully leads the wolves into the ambush zone. He shouts a warning that the grey wolves are coming, telling his party to prepare for attack. The others ready themselves to counter. The first wolf emerges from the trees. Kimman takes aim. Kimman's arrow finds its mark, striking down a wolf. Al engages another one. Their plan appears to be working perfectly. Gans brings his axe down on a third. The fight seems to be going well. But Yajin suddenly stops, sensing something unexpected is approaching. His senses flare, detecting a massive number of reinforcements. He questions what is happening, as there should have only been 5. He realizes with horror that it is 60 wolves, and shouts a warning to preoccupied Gans. The party is stunned by the news of 10 units of reinforcements. Yajin's senses reveal an even greater threat. A presence different from the grey wolves is mixed in with the horde. He stares into the darkness, wondering what in the hell is coming for them. Faced with overwhelming odds, Yajin wonders what he should do. He knows enemy reinforcements will soon be upon them, and if he is going to escape, it must be now. While his comrades debate a retreat, Yajin prioritizes his own life over that of mere acquaintances. However, after a moment of hesitation, he clenches his fist, having made a decision. Yajin charges forward, refusing to abandon his party. He feels this situation is his mistake as a scout, and he would never forgive himself if he left them. As he rushes to help, Al calls out his name and declares she will assist him against the 2 beasts. Though he has never fought a quadruped monster before, he reasons that its face must be its vital point. With that in mind, he launches a powerful kick towards its head. The creature reacts with surprising quickness, dodging the blow. Annoyed by its speed, Yajin realizes the danger he is in. The beast snaps at the air where he just was. He immediately rolls away to avoid a counterattack. He scrambles back to his feet. Yajin admits he was overly optimistic in predicting the creature's movements and that his kicks must be more compact. The monster is coming. He decides to use the monster's own speed against it, planning to slant his upper body into the kick to add weight. He will strike with the shortest possible trajectory as it charges. With a sickening crack, his kick connects, breaking the monster's neck. As the beast slumps to the ground, Yajin confirms the kill. He notes that while the creatures are fast, they lack durability. His respite is brief as he sees there are 2 more left. Al calls out, asking if Yajin is done on his end too. Just as he is about to suggest a retreat, his expression changes. His eyes widen in shock. He realizes with dread that they did not make it in time. From the edge of the forest, a massive pack of wolves appears. Yajin and Al stare in grim silence. Yajin notices one is a size bigger than the rest, understanding now the identity of the strange presence he sensed. Al explains that rarely, a superior version of a grey wolf is mixed into a pack. The superior creature stands revealed, a fearsome black wolf. The black wolf lifts its head and lets out a commanding howl. At its signal, the pack charges. Preparing for the onslaught, Yajin draws his short sword. He gets into a fighting stance, ready for them to come. The pack of grey wolves rushes towards the adventurers. Gons tells his companions they have to do this and to put some spirit into it. Yajin notices that the black wolf isn't joining the attack, seemingly content to watch from afar. The party members brace themselves as the wolves charge. Yajin finds himself facing 2 of the beasts alone. He stomps his foot to steady himself as one lunges forward. A wolf dashes in and slashes his leg. Frustrated, Yajin realizes he cannot avoid them all. He stumbles from the attack. Another one jolts him, forcing him to engage. He realizes the wolves are employing hit-and-run tactics, distancing themselves after each attack as if to toy with him. He understands their movements are different from any grey wolves he has seen before. He suspects it is because of the black wolf's command. As the wolves shuffle around him, he knows staying on the defensive will only worsen his condition. While the bleeding isn't a major issue now, it will become dangerous over time. He refuses to become food in this place. With renewed determination, he vows to survive and kill every last one of them. Deciding to go on the offensive, Yajin dashes toward a wolf. He knows he will have to risk getting hit to land a decisive counterattack. The beast lunges with its jaws wide open. He readies his dagger for the confrontation. His gamble pays off as one wolf evades his initial strike. He swiftly pivots and stabs the second wolf through the head. Another wolf lunges and chomps down on his arm. Enduring the pain, he continues the fight. He raises his dagger and furiously stabs the creature latched onto his arm. One wolf lies dead on the ground while another attacks. He strikes the wolf away. During the struggle, a third wolf claws at his face, drawing blood from his eye. Now with his vision hindered, he gets back into his stance. He knows he cannot deal with their speed without a weapon. He searches for something to use for a surprise attack. He remembers the emergency supplies he hid in his clothes, a silver coin and some spices. With a determined motion, Yajin rips open the pouch. He throws the contents into the air, creating a cloud of spices aimed at the final wolf. He uses the silver coin held in his fist to reinforce his punch. As the spices distract the wolf, Yajin closes the distance. He drives his fist directly into the creature's eye. Yajin sways, then pulls his fist back. The wolf collapses, defeated. He takes a breath, whispering that he did it. But a sudden shudder runs through him as he looks up. He remembers the greater threat, the black wolf. The massive black wolf finally makes its move, leaping towards the exhausted Yajin. It lands with a heavy slam on his chest armor. In the distance, Al cries out his name in alarm. Yajin stares up in terror, sweat dripping from his face. The black wolf looms over him, its monstrous maw on full display. Pinned beneath the immense weight of the black wolf, Nozaki struggles for his life. His hands are the only barrier between him and the beast's crushing jaws. The creature's claws begin to penetrate the metal plate of his armor. He grunts in exertion, realizing he will be done for if he cannot escape. The sheer strength of the wolf pushes his arms to their absolute limit. Knowing he is on the verge of being overpowered, Nozaki desperately racks his brain for a solution. He realizes it is a do-or-die situation. With grim determination, he resolves that he must act now. In a flash of inspiration, Nozaki remembers his remaining supplies. He reaches for the pouch of spices. With a defiant shout, he tells the beast to taste the expensive seasoning. The spices hit their mark, causing the wolf to recoil. Nozaki seizes the momentary opening. He grabs the creature's leg. Then he delivers a powerful kick to its joint. With the wolf off balance, Nozaki leaps onto its back. The beast stumbles, surprised by the sudden maneuver. He locks his arms around its neck in a desperate attempt to subdue it. The black wolf thrashes and roars, its powerful jaws snapping uselessly at the air. Nozaki applies a chokehold, squeezing with all his remaining might. The beast digs its claws into the earth as it tries to throw him off. It struggles violently, but Nozaki holds on tight. As the wolf bucks and writhes, Nozaki grits his teeth. He knows this is a battle of attrition. It is either his life or the wolf's, and he cannot let go. The struggle continues, a silent, brutal contest of endurance. The beast gasps for air, its strength failing. Both combatants are pushed to their physical breaking points. The black wolf's movements become sluggish as it stumbles. Drool drips from its jaws as its body finally begins to give out. Nozaki maintains his grip, exhausted but victorious. The life fades from the creature's eyes. It collapses to the ground, finally defeated. He slowly releases his grip, his body trembling from exertion. Nozaki remains on the fallen beast, catching his breath after the life-and-death battle. The black wolf lies still, its reign of terror over. Exhausted, Nozaki collapses onto the grass, staring blankly at the sky. He thinks to himself that it's finally over, feeling he lacks the energy to even stand. Suddenly, he hears his party members calling to him, telling him to retrieve the spoils. With the black wolf gone, the rest of the pack is no longer a threat. As Nozaki lies helpless on the ground, a figure approaches. An armored party member with an axe stands over him. Nozaki berates himself for letting his guard down, believing he is about to be killed and having no complaints. The figure looks down at him, expression unreadable. The man grins and simply says it was not bad. Nozaki is stunned by the unexpected praise. Al confirms that Nozaki took the beast down alone, calling his feat amazing and stating he is more than qualified to be a combatant. The party gathers around the fallen black wolf. The cloaked adventurer begins searching the carcass, wondering if they will find what they are looking for. Suddenly, they exclaim that they found it. They pull a large, glowing magic stone from the beast. Nozaki asks what it is, and Al remarks on its size. Al explains that it's used as fuel for magical devices or as a catalyst in alchemy. Such stones form inside monsters that have lived for a very long time. She adds that harvesting a magic stone of this size is quite a rare feat. Nozaki is thrilled, realizing the consumable item will sell for a high price. Al tells him that after they finish with the wolf, they have some greetings to take care of. As they approach the village, the locals watch them with trepidation. The party walks together, united in purpose. Carrying the massive pelt, the adventurers confront the village head. The village head is stunned that they actually defeated the black wolf. Gans angrily informs the man that they nearly died because of his deception. Gans lunged at the village head in a rage. Nozaki recalls that Gans's wrath had been tremendous, likely due to an adventurer's ability revealing the deception. He would have split the requester's head open if Al had not prevented the second attack. The village head dejectedly confessed that he knew there were more than 5 wolves but stayed quiet to lower the commission fee. He had gambled on the party's survival based on the number of enemies. Al, who had been unable to see through the lie, seemed vexed, suspecting a two-tongued skill was used. Afterward, Al relentlessly handled the reparation negotiations, likely feeling more responsible and angrier than even Gans. On the road back to Rock Cliff, the party set up camp, their spirits high due to the money they received. They shared various stories about their lives and past quests. By fighting together on the edge of life and death, he felt a true bond. Nozaki finally felt like he had become a member of the party. As the ramparts of Rock Cliff came into view, Nozaki was surprised by his own fond feelings. The city that once seemed like a den of criminals with bad public safety now felt different. He wondered when he started to think of this as his place to return, and with a smile, he thought to himself that he was home. Back in his room, Nozaki made another discovery when he opened his status. He was confused to see his level had not gone up. He had excitedly checked it after defeating the Black Wolf. He wondered if some item was necessary to level up further. He did notice, however, that his titles had increased. To his fury, he saw a new title, M-word Baldy in progress, and cursed the god for messing with him. Nozaki clutched his head in frustration, insisting he was not a Baldy, and cursing the god's nerve for treating it like a joke. He reflected on his journey, being ejected naked into a dangerous forest and fighting countless monsters and humans. Even though he had finally achieved a normal lifestyle, he received this kind of treatment instead of a compliment. He cursed the god, telling them not to delight in his unfortunate sufferings. Clenching his fist, Nozaki vowed that things would not go as the god wished. He was not a toy. He told the god to just watch him. Looking out at the moon, he declared that from this point on, he would definitely become happy. A few days have passed since their last request, leaving Nozaki with time to rest. He notes that adventurers in this world, like Gans and the others, seem to lack the concept of saving, spending their earnings immediately. For the first time since coming to this world, he has a lot of free time on his hands. Stretching as he wakes, he realizes it is already afternoon. With nothing else to do, Nozaki has fallen into a routine of having conversations with the guild receptionist after lunch to gather information. He learns that the receptionist is quite incredible, having once been a famous adventurer who provides him with a variety of information. They were in the middle of discussing the concept of a level ceiling. The receptionist explains that at every 5-level interval, a barrier-like block exists which can only be broken by defeating monsters of a higher rank. Monsters at level 5 are rank 2, and at level 10 they are rank 3. However, at level 15, adventurers face monsters categorized as rank 4. When asked why adventurers like Gans haven't surpassed this level, the receptionist states the answer is simple: rank 4 monsters are incredibly strong. The metal weapons typically used by adventurers cannot make a dent in them. Weapons made from black steel are required, but they are so expensive that their recent earnings would feel like chump change in comparison. Furthermore, even if one saved up for a weapon, a single loss means everything is gone, making the risk not worth it for those just wanting to complete requests. Nozaki understands that with no reason to aim higher and face such a risk, everyone chooses to stagnate at level 15. Al agrees, admitting that he feels the same way. Lying in bed, Nozaki mulls over the level 15 barrier. He considers the consequences of failure. Attempting and losing would mean everything goes poof, even the small happiness he has finally obtained. Overwhelmed by the thought, he wonders what he should do. Lying in bed, he questions his own desire to become stronger. He gets to his feet. As he stands, he feels a strange sense of unease. He throws a practice punch, trying to understand the feeling. He wonders if he was just imagining it, but concludes that his body indeed feels heavier. Nozaki approaches Al, who seems to understand the feeling immediately. Al explains that during a combat skill, one of the effects is a boost in physical ability, and his own sword skill has this effect as well. Al explains the mechanics. For sword skills, the combination of intention and holding a weapon activates the skill, releasing the weapon cancels it. He continues that when the elevated physical ability returns to normal, movements can feel sluggish. Al notes that this uneasy feeling is common for everyone when they first learn a skill. However, Nozaki thinks to himself that the skill he's talking about wasn't learned just recently. Al finds the situation weird, pondering how it could be. Nozaki agrees, asserting that he would have noticed any fluctuation in physical ability caused by a skill. This is why he previously thought his karate skill had no physical effect he could feel. He wonders if he was mistaken. He realizes that if what he just felt was the reduction in physical ability Al described, then he has only just now savored it for the first time, despite having acquired the skill long ago. Al notices Nozaki's trembling hand and asks what is wrong. A thought strikes Nozaki. If a sword skill triggers when you grab a sword, what is the trigger for karate which uses no weapons? He considers that if the trigger was simply using karate techniques, then he arrives at an answer: it's breathing. His breathing is different from a normal person's. It's a karate technique he has practiced for years, allowing him to use abdominal breathing to minimize sound and avoid being read. Not just breathing, but his walking manner, gaze distribution, and shifting of his center of mass are all karate techniques deeply ingrained in his body. He realizes that since he has been using karate techniques on a daily basis, the skill was constantly activated. It was only in that unguarded moment, splayed out on the bed with his breath disordered, that he noticed the skill for the first time. Al listens, finally understanding the situation. With this sudden insight, Nozaki urgently calls out to Al. Nozaki intensely demands that Al teach him everything he knows about skills. With a new purpose, he heads out of the city. Carrying a lantern, he walks with determined strides. He travels to a remote area just outside the city walls. After confirming no one is around, he decides this spot is all right for his purpose. He is glad he scouted a private training spot beforehand. While he was listening to the explanation about skills, he was frozen in thought. He recalls Al explaining that the most extreme effect of a skill is the optimization of movement, allowing one to deliver the best attack in any situation, even when hurt. The implications are terrifying, and he knows he must test it out. He assumes a ready stance in the deserted area. He pictures the movements in his head. The skill reacts and his body begins to move. He tells himself not to resist, to surrender himself completely to the skill. His body moves with an effortless grace, executing a flawless technique. He throws a powerful, perfectly formed punch. The result is incredible. He analyzes the movement. By relaxing his knees, his center of gravity is lowered, and at the perfect timing, the returning energy is converted and stored in his knees. Then, using the energy stored in his knees and the spring from them, he transfers it through his upper body into his fist, adding a 180-degree rotation. He marvels at the mysterious feeling of a fist with his whole body's weight placed in it, a complicated maneuver he couldn't have performed without the skill. He stands in awe, wondering if this is the world a master lives in. The only light comes from his lantern as he breathes, focusing. He continues to practice his karate forms. His movements are sharp and precise in the darkness. He moves seamlessly from one technique to another. A sense of exhilaration grows within him. With a look of intense concentration and joy, he thinks to himself that this is fun. The experience reminds him of his younger self, full of excitement for training. He feels it is just like back then. As he stands next to a vision of his younger self, he offers his thanks to the world. He also thanks God for creating this karate skill. Bathed in the light of the full moon, Nozaki makes a solemn vow. He feels that even in this strange new world, he is not forsaken, and that from this day forward he will live strongly. After a full night of training, Nozaki is wide awake, his mind buzzing with the desire to practice even more. However, as the sun rises and the city begins to stir, he realizes that his secluded training session must come to an end. He gets up and heads toward the Adventurers Guild, hoping to find something on the quest board. Nozaki finds a suitable task on the quest board. He takes the posting for a medicinal herb collection quest to the guild receptionist. The receptionist is surprised that a member of a prominent party would take on such a simple request. Nozaki explains that it's an opportunity to gather his own herbs for making salves, and conveniently, accepting a quest means he won't have to pay the fee to leave the city. The receptionist, intrigued, asks how Nozaki learned to make salves. He jokingly asks if Nozaki had to threaten the apothecary for the information, knowing their recipes are closely guarded secrets. Nozaki listens seriously, as the receptionist explains that apothecaries don't normally share their mixture's recipe. The proceedings are completed, and Nozaki is officially on his quest. With his travel permit in hand, Nozaki approaches the city gate. After a quick check by the guard, he is allowed to pass. He leaves the safety of the city walls behind and ventures into the barren wilderness. He follows a worn path, making his way deeper into the wild landscape. Eventually, Nozaki finds what he's looking for, the gnarl herb. He carefully recalls the instructions to dig out the roots and wrap them in a damp cloth. With the quest objective easily found, he realizes he'll have plenty of time left over for some technique practice. After securing the harvested herbs in his bag, Nozaki sets his things aside. He prepares to begin his training. Nozaki contemplates his training goals, wanting to master his movements so he can fight effectively even without his skill active. He also plans to learn the effective range of his karate skill and investigate his other abilities. He needs to test if he can fight while using his sense-presence skill, believing the combination would be powerful. The list of things he wants to do is long, but the prospect fills him with determination. Though the all-night training session was rough, Nozaki found it fun. As he stretches, his senses suddenly flare. He is instantly alerted to a presence nearby, a clear image of a deer forming in his mind. Startled, he wonders how he knew the deer was there without even looking. His perception sharpens further, feeding him distinct images of other creatures in the vicinity. He is surrounded by the life of the forest, each creature now appearing to him as a clear, distinct outline. He realizes his ability has changed. What was once a fuzzy, undifferentiated sense of presence has evolved. Nozaki connects this evolution to his recent training. By learning to handle his skills, his information processing ability must have increased. Overcome with joy, he throws his arms up in triumph, filled with the conviction that he can become even stronger. Returning to the guild, Nozaki turns in the quest. The receptionist notes his recent hard work. When Nozaki mentions he gathered extra herbs for his party members, the receptionist has an idea. He cheekily asks for a portion to sell. Nozaki thanks him as he receives his payment. The receptionist's demeanor suddenly shifts. He warns Nozaki that he is being targeted. Rumors have spread that the newcomer in the powerful party isn't spending his money, but stashing it away, making him a juicy target for criminals. He explains that crafty criminals from neighboring lands have been flowing into the area, making the situation even more dangerous. He cautions Nozaki to be careful, as these groups would kill for money without a second thought. Taking the warning to heart, Nozaki pulls up his hood. He walks cautiously through the city streets. Nozaki tries to quell his rising paranoia, telling himself to stop seeing criminals everywhere. Just then, he passes a cloaked figure who watches him with menacing eyes. As Nozaki walks through the rocky terrain outside the city, the sound of other footsteps confirms he is being followed. His pursuers reveal themselves, a trio of dangerous-looking men. They are led by the same cloaked figure from the city, whose face is now visible, twisted in a crazed grin. Just as the thought crosses his mind, Nozaki's enhanced senses confirm his fears. He knows they have been tailing him since he left the city, and that he is their target. In a place like Rock Cliff, half-assed skills won't ensure survival. He assesses them as professional killers, not common bandits. They've likely researched his patterns and plan to attack him in the forest, away from any witnesses. Realizing escape is not an option, he resolves to fight. This is the reality of this world, and to survive he must face it head-on. He decides to engage them in the forest. Nozaki deliberately walks into the dense woods. His pursuers follow close behind. The cloaked leader signals his men, and they begin to spread out, preparing to spring their trap. The three criminals surround the spot where they believe Nozaki is cornered, one of them calling out to him. But Nozaki is already one step ahead, watching them from behind a tree, having lured them into his chosen battlefield. Nozaki steps out to face them. The leader demands all his valuables and the location of his fortune, offering a false promise to spare his life. Nozaki sees through the deception immediately, calling it a lie. He knows they have no intention of letting him live to report back to his party. He warns them that his party members won't forgive anyone who harms him, and that underestimating adventurers will be their downfall. One of the pursuers smirks, understanding the threat, then suddenly yells out for Gons, as if calling to an ally. The bluff catches his own comrades by surprise. As the pursuer reveals his shout was a lie, he finds that Nozaki has already used the moment of confusion to make a run for it. The criminals give chase, vowing to slaughter him. But Nozaki isn't running away to escape. He knows that would only lead to being targeted again. He is simply repositioning for the fight. With unshakable resolve, Nozaki declares that he will survive and that his pursuers will regret underestimating adventurers. The roles have been reversed. With determination burning in his eyes, he announces that the hunt has now begun. Deep in the forest, Nozaki continues to run, putting distance between himself and his pursuers. Behind him, the men struggle to keep up, one of them shouting for him to wait. The three adventurers chase after him, their leader furiously demanding he stop running. Nozaki, however, remains calm, noting that the gap between them is naturally widening due to the differences in their armor weight and physique. As they run over uneven ground, one of the heavily armored men loses his footing. He stumbles, breaking the group's formation. Seeing this, Nozaki recognizes his opportunity to turn the tables. He immediately pivots to attack. Nozaki activates a skill to conceal his presence, vanishing from sight in an instant. His pursuers stop in their tracks, completely baffled by his sudden disappearance. While one of the adventurers scans the area, wondering where his target went, Nozaki emerges. He lands a swift, decisive blow to the side of the man's head. The other two men are stunned by the sudden attack. Nozaki's expression is one of focused intensity. He presses his advantage, moving in on his next target. Nozaki delivers a sharp kick to the back of the long-haired man's knee, sweeping his leg out from under him. As he falls, the man struggles to warn his last remaining ally. His eyes widen in alarm, but it's too late. With a powerful stomp, Nozaki pins the fallen man to the ground, neutralizing him as the bold adventurer watches in rage, cursing at him. With 2 men down, Nozaki turns his attention to the final opponent. The bold adventurer charges forward. Nozaki confidently tells the man he's about to witness the fruits of his training. The adventurer swings his sword, but Nozaki effortlessly deflects the attack with his open hand. He catches and controls the man's wrist. With a fierce look of determination, Nozaki unleashes his attack. He lands a powerful punch, striking his opponent squarely in the face. The impact of the blow sends the man reeling. He collapses to his knees, utterly defeated. Nozaki stands over his downed opponent, his sword now on the ground. He internally critiques his own technique, noting how he perfectly shifted his body weight into an upper left jab while pulling the man's wrist. Nozaki approaches the last conscious adventurer. The man desperately begs for his life, pleading to be spared. He promises never to cross Nozaki again, but Nozaki's expression remains unreadable. After a moment of silence, Nozaki turns and walks away. The terrified adventurer watches him leave, relieved. But his relief turns to hatred, as he vows that he will remember what happened. However, Nozaki has not truly left. He stops and picks up a large stone. He prepares to throw it, deciding not to leave any loose ends. While sorting through the scavenged armor, Nozaki's party member deduces that he killed the last man with a thrown stone, and Nozaki confirms it was the correct choice to stay out of the man's sword range. He admits he was impressed that the man never let go of his sword, even at the end. His companion explains that with all adventurers in Rock Cliff stuck at level 15, the competition is fierce, leading some to take on side jobs. Some even stoop low enough to become bandits. Nozaki realizes that he was targeted for this very reason. His friend advises him that he must flaunt his strength to deter rivals, as their motives are often jealousy or a desire to eliminate competition. Selling the stolen equipment in the slums, he adds, is a good way to display his power. Following his friend's advice, Nozaki heads to a pawn shop in the slums. He sells the gear for a pouch of coins. The shopkeeper, impressed, tells Nozaki he'll be his client from now on. Sitting alone, Nozaki contemplates the money he earned, reflecting on how little a life is worth in this world. He sighs, feeling the weight of his actions. He realizes his survival now depends on fighting criminals, even inside the city walls. As he walks through an archway, a familiar voice calls out to him. It's one of his party members, calling him by his nickname, Yajin. He waves him over to a table where the rest of their group is sitting. His bald companion cheerfully asks if he made easy money from selling the equipment. Nozaki accuses them of trying to mooch off him. The blonde member encourages it, suggesting it's a good chance to show off and enjoy a drink together. Annoyed but unable to refuse, Nozaki tells them to shut up. His friend simply tells him to come drink, reminding him there's no time for an adventurer to mope. Nozaki concedes that they are right and that there is no use worrying alone. Agreeing to their proposal, they decide to have a drink. They all raise their mugs for a cheer, ready to make a big mess. As they drink, Nozaki feels the gloomy feeling in his chest begin to dissipate, even if just a little. A man with aggressive face paint confronts them, demanding they hand over their valuables. Nozaki and Gons observe the confrontation. Gons stands ready with his axe as the confrontation unfolds. The new adventurer nervously offers up his money. Nozaki internally comments on Gons's idiotic and straightforward conduct. Gons acts on pure instinct, extorting money and picking fights with anyone he dislikes. Yajin confirms that if people don't comply, Gons uses force, and new adventurers are often the victims. Gons is known to be the strongest fighter in the entire city. Anyone who has tried to fight back has been soundly defeated, so now only strangers challenge him. Yajin explains that this show of force is necessary to deter criminals, and he wishes the man well. The man seems relieved by the outcome, much to Nozaki's confusion. Gons mentions he is going to the weapons shop, while Nozaki plans to gather medicinal herbs. Gons warns Nozaki that if he acts as recklessly as him, he will end up dead. Nozaki, who is also called Yajin, wonders how Gons can live so carelessly while he has to constantly be on guard. Al appears and introduces himself as the answer to Nozaki's dilemma. Al tells Nozaki not to be deceived by his appearance, admitting he's a snake with a hidden side. Al's sources gather news from all over town, and any assassination plot against Gons would be sent to him immediately. Nozaki mentions that he just witnessed Gons extorting someone. Al claims the person who was extorted was happy about it thanks to a rumor about receiving divine protection. Al wonders aloud who could have spread such a rumor, confirming that information manipulation is his specialty. Nozaki, also known as Yajin, acknowledges that Al's actions protect the party's fame. Al casually reveals that the hair growth medicine Nozaki seeks is not available in the city. Nozaki is shocked by this revelation. He demands to know how Al found out, once again calling him a snake. Nozaki muses that with the street talk about Gonz's fearsomeness and Al's reputation, he needs to make a name for himself as well. He spots a familiar figure in the distance and wonders if it is Kimman. Nozaki thinks that perhaps he can use Kimman, who is widely feared despite his smaller frame, as a reference for displaying his own power. He resolves to begin a 24-hour surveillance to understand Kimman's mysterious ways. Kimman pauses at the doorway, causing Nozaki to wonder what's happening. Nozaki watches from a distance as Kimman approaches a building. Nozaki questions why Kimman would go to an inn. A man bursts out of the building through a shattered window. As he flees, he pushes another person out of his way, cursing in panic. The man confesses in a panic that he rejected an invitation, and fueled by alcohol, he may have killed the woman, who he now realizes was acquainted with that guy. Nozaki is stunned as the man runs away. Kimman exits the inn, announcing he was supposed to protect the girl inside. He spots the man turning a corner and calls out his name. Kimman asks Nozaki, calling him Yajin, to use sense presence to chase the culprit, surprising Nozaki that he's even talking. Nozaki agrees and activates his ability to track the fleeing man. Kimman urgently tells Nozaki they need to chase him and asks for his help. They immediately take off in pursuit. As they run, Nozaki asks for an explanation of what's going on. Kimman explains that the man violently attacked the harlot he was supposed to meet and then ran off. Nozaki remembers the old man at the guild mentioning that Kimman was friendly with a harlot. Kimman grits his teeth, revealing she's gravely injured. Filled with rage, Kimman declares he will kill the bastard. They arrive outside the tavern where the culprit has taken refuge. Kimman observes the tavern, asking if the man has moved. Nozaki uses his ability to confirm the man is inside, likely too frightened to move after angering Kimman. The prolonged use of sense presence is taking a toll on Nozaki. Nozaki suggests charging in, but Kimman immediately dismisses the idea as not good. Nozaki confirms with his ability that the man is talking with a group of people inside. Kimman explains that the man's mates are probably inside, making a direct assault too dangerous. Nozaki, trying to reassure Kimman, insists that he will be fine. Kimman decides they will wait for the man to move, and Nozaki agrees. The two take up a surveillance position on a crumbling wall. Nozaki tracks the man's presence inside the tavern. He senses the man get up and start walking. Kimman quickly reports that the target has moved and called out to someone. He announces that the man is approaching the counter, his line of sight moving from left to right across the door. Kimman draws his bow, preparing to take the shot. He announces that the target is coming. He counts down from 3 to 1 as the target appears through the bars of the window. Inside, the tavern patrons enjoy their drinks, unaware of the impending attack. An arrow pierces the man's neck, just as he is about to attack the unsuspecting woman. The man is thrown back by the force of the arrow. He lands hard on the wooden floor, with the woman looking on in shock. He cries out in shock and pain before succumbing to his wound. A patron looks out the door in stunned disbelief. Kimman stands ready from his sniping position. He turns his head, the deed done. Kimman suggests they return, expressing concern for the injured girl's condition. Nozaki and Kimman stand over the bed where the injured woman is resting. Nozaki confirms with relief that her condition has settled for the most part. Kimman looks down, lamenting that he failed to protect her as he had vowed. Nozaki observes that the girl is clearly precious to Kimman. Nozaki reassures him, explaining that the medicine he used will ensure she heals without any scars. Nozaki pats Kimman's head, remarking that he's back to his usual quiet self and that the girl reminds him of someone. Kimman confirms that the girl reminds him of his little sister. Nozaki listens intently. He then reveals the painful truth: his little sister was also sold. The two stand in silence under the moonlight. In the end, Nozaki realizes he wasn't able to use Kimman as a reference. He understands that Kimman's way of demonstrating power is through assassination. He considers that Kimman may be the most feared of the three party members he has observed. He accepts that assassination is not something he can imitate and that he must rely on a more direct approach. He laments that it seems it will be a while before he can find any days of peace. Suddenly, an idea strikes him, and he realizes there is one more way left to display his power. Nozaki remembers Al explaining that the fierce competition is due to everyone being stuck at level 15, which is a major cause of the city's poor public order. He looks up, contemplating the invisible barrier of the level ceiling. As Nozaki walks through a narrow alley, a hooded figure follows close behind. The figure silently draws a sword, preparing for an ambush. A few days after Kimman's assassination, Nozaki finds himself facing yet another attack. He sighs, thinking not again, as he faces the waves of attacks from scoundrels. Though weary, his heart races with anticipation as he thinks to himself, "Fine, bring it on." His opponent is a scarred, blonde-haired man wielding a longsword. Unarmed, Nozaki calmly assumes a fighting stance, ready to face him. Nozaki eyes his opponent, fist clenched. The two men circle each other, cautiously measuring their distance. The swordsman keeps his blade at the ready, watching Nozaki's every move. They continue their tense standoff, shuffling their feet on the cobblestones. Their eyes lock, each man focused and determined to find an opening. The swordsman lunges, but Nozaki evades. Nozaki finds his back against a wall. The attacker taunts him, declaring that he is now backed into a corner. The attacker, now against the wall, is not defeated. He remains focused, preparing for his next move as he sweats under pressure. With his back to the wall, Nozaki holds up a broken piece of a sword for defense. The attacker swings, but Nozaki ducks under the blade. He recognizes he has barged into the perfect range for unarmed combat and readies a left jab. Having successfully closed the distance, Nozaki prepares his next move. He drives his fist into his opponent's side. The swordsman recoils in pain from the powerful blow. Nozaki presses his advantage, grappling with the man. He slams him against the stone wall. He seizes the man's head and delivers a decisive blow. His opponent stumbles backward, completely overpowered. The attacker crashes to the ground, unconscious. Nozaki stands over his defeated foe, the fight concluded. Nozaki reflects that his victory was only possible because closing distances isn't seen as important in this world, unlike in Japan. He then heads to a shop to sell equipment. The shopkeeper notes how worn out Nozaki looks recently. Nozaki replies it's because his life is constantly being targeted, but he's grateful they still buy his gear. Leaving the shop, Nozaki pulls up his hood. He muses that he has adapted well to this world. But he knows he must always pay close attention, especially when walking through the lawless slums. The slums organization deals directly with the feudal lord, offering dirty money for legal exemption. This makes the area a paradise for scoundrels, free from the country's hands. Though supposedly lawless, it's regulated by the boss's underlings. He suddenly notices an old man staring at him intensely. The sanitation is poor, with mysterious bags seeping red liquids, but bodies are not just left lying around. Dead bodies are exchanged for money, with hair made into wigs and bones sold as fertilizer or for alchemy. He knows never to eat the meat sold in the slums. Though the slums seem deserted, he constantly feels like he's being watched. The disorderly buildings create poor visibility, forcing him to keep his sense presence on full blast. The sensation is like walking through a forest where monsters secretly gather. Exhausted after his fight, he wants to leave the slums quickly to take a breather. Of course, he wouldn't have come to such a dangerous place if he had a choice. He knows that smuggling shady equipment is a source of funds for the local organization, and he must sell it directly at a slum pawn shop. He feels he's been managing well and that things will be fine. Reaching an archway that marks the exit, he stops. He senses no one nearby and breathes a sigh of relief, believing he has safely left the slums. With his business concluded, Nozaki decides it is time to return to the guild. He turns to leave the alley, passing by some large sacks piled against the wall. Just as he believes he is in the clear, a menacing figure appears from behind. The man sneers, thanking Nozaki for all his money, revealing the encounter was a setup. The hooded man lunges at Nozaki. Reacting instantly, Nozaki grabs his attacker's arm. He delivers a swift, powerful kick to his midsection. Nozaki's counterattack sends the man stumbling forward. However, Nozaki himself collapses to his knees. He clutches his side in sudden pain as his attacker lies on the ground. Looking down, Nozaki is horrified to find a dagger embedded in his side. He realizes with a sickening feeling that he let his guard down after leaving the slums. He understands now that his attacker was able to hide his presence. He collapses against the wall, cursing his mistake. With sheer determination, he pushes himself to his feet. He knows he must somehow reach the clinic. As he stumbles forward, a wave of dizziness hits him. He looks at his trembling hand and realizes with dread that the blade must have been coated in poison. His vision blurs, the world tilting and spinning around him. The poison begins to take effect. Finally succumbing to the wound and the poison, Nozaki collapses onto the cold cobblestone street. His journey is cut short as the curtain falls. Nozaki slowly regains consciousness, his body limp on the ground. Dazed and confused, he looks around, wondering where on earth he is. As he lies in a strange void, his memory returns. He recalls the sharp pain and realizes he was stabbed. The weight of this realization seems to pull him down. He feels himself sinking deep into the abyss of his own consciousness. He falls endlessly through a silent gray void, his body drifting towards an unknown destination. His descent ends abruptly as he plunges into a murky, viscous substance. Startled, he looks down at his hand, now covered in the strange goo. Suddenly, a massive hand formed from the muck erupts from the surface. Before he can react, it seizes him, lifting him from the mire as he cries out in shock. More grotesque, mud-covered figures begin to rise from the muck, their faces twisted in silent screams. Nozaki finds himself surrounded by these spectral forms. The faces of those he has killed rise to haunt him, their voices echoing in his mind. They call him a murderer, screaming that he will be cursed forever for his actions. The ghostly figures swarm him, their weight dragging him back down into the murky depths. His hand is the last to disappear beneath the surface. He is consumed by the darkness, left alone and small in a vast, empty void. Alone in the abyss, an unbearable cold seeps into his bones. He shivers, wondering if this is how he will die, paying for the sin of being a murderer. He reflects on his life, acknowledging his sins. Exhausted and disillusioned, he feels he has gained nothing. He concludes he has no attachments left to this world. As he resigns himself to this fate, a flicker of a memory appears in the darkness. It's a vision from his past, a time of training and discipline. The word karate flashes before him. A voice echoes in his mind, questioning his belief that he gained nothing. His eyes widen as another memory begins to surface. He remembers the camaraderie and laughter shared with his companions. The voice challenges his bleak worldview, prompting him to reconsider if everyone is truly a bastard. Then a radiant light appears, coalescing into the warm, smiling face of a woman he once knew. These memories reignite his will to live. His eyes snap open with renewed fire. Back in the sea of despair, his hand breaks through the surface with a powerful splash. He erupts from the murky depths, letting out a defiant roar against the darkness that tried to claim him. He fights back against the grasping spirits, refusing to be dragged down again. With a fierce look, he declares that he is not giving up. With renewed vigor, he unleashes his karate on the ghostly figures, vowing that he will live. He proclaims that no curses or spirits will stop him. He will send anyone who interferes flying. With a final, powerful push, he launches himself upward. He breaks free from the darkness and reaches toward the light. His face is a mask of determination as he pulls himself back towards the world of the living. He reaches desperately for the light. His consciousness returns, the light of the void fading back into the reality of the world he left behind, focusing on a familiar building. A woman's voice is heard as she leaves a nearby building, saying she's off to the shops. As she rounds the corner, she stops short, shocked by the sight of Nozaki's collapsed body on the ground. Nozaki lies motionless on the cobblestone path, a trail of blood marking his desperate crawl from the alley. The woman freezes for a moment before rushing to his side. Seeing the severity of his injury, she desperately cries out for someone to help. Lying on the cold stones, Nozaki faintly hears her pleas for help. With his last ounce of strength, he clings to a single thought: he will live. From the darkness, a familiar scene comes into view as consciousness slowly returns. Nozaki's eyes flutter open. He finds himself lying in a proper bed inside a sunlit room. A voice from the side of the bed asks if he's finally awake. A dark-haired person stands by a table, explaining that Nozaki collapsed in front of the clinic. Recognizing them, Nozaki murmurs the name Clairn-san. Clairn continues, explaining that while the stab wound was shallow, The poison that coursed through his body was severe, and it's a miracle he survived. Nozaki expresses his gratitude, relieved that he made it. However, Claire tells him to direct his thanks to another girl. Nozaki is taken aback. Claire explains that a girl named Belle was the one who found him and single-handedly took care of him for 3 days. He teasingly adds that she handled everything, including his bedpan. As Nozaki blushes, Claire asks why, noting it's the second time. Flustered, Claire informs him the poison has been flushed out and the wound is already closed, then wonders aloud what kind of person Nozaki is. Nozaki sits up, clutching his stomach in amazement at his rapid recovery. Nozaki insists he never meant to cause trouble and plans to leave after offering his thanks. Claire gravely warns him to stay away from Belle. Claire explains that his situation has only grown more dangerous, and Nozaki somberly agrees. With the medical fees paid, Claire prepares to leave. He advises Nozaki not to get stabbed again. He points to a knife on the bedside table, telling Nozaki to take it with him. Nozaki recognizes it as the weapon that nearly killed him, grimly noting it would be a nice knife if it hadn't been stuck in his stomach. After Claire departs, Nozaki sees a fleeting vision of the girl who cared for him. He gets out of bed and moves toward the door. The door opens to reveal Belle. She looks surprised to see him standing there. They face each other in the quiet room. As Nozaki stares at her, she becomes flustered. Belle covers her mouth with her hands. Tears welling in her eyes, Belle breaks into a beautiful smile. Moved, Nozaki thanks her profusely, thinking to himself that a smile suits her best. Nozaki explains that his situation has become more dangerous, just as Claire warned. He fears she will be caught in the crossfire if she stays close to him. He realizes that to protect Belle's smile, he must leave immediately. Now dressed and ready to depart, Nozaki prepares to say goodbye. Belle stops him and hands him a small bundle, explaining that it contains the antidote and its recipe. She asks him to keep it a secret. He gratefully accepts. Remembering his debt, Nozaki pulls out a coin. He gives her a Megad Empire's gold coin. He explains he's giving back the money he borrowed. Belle quietly accepts the coin, bowing her head in thanks. Belle surprises Nozaki by telling him the coin is for interest. When he asks if it's enough, she beams. She replies that it is, just as she expected. Thinking once more that a smile truly suits her, Nozaki turns and walks away. They part ways without a formal goodbye as she watches him go. Later, at a local tavern, Nozaki sits down for a meal. A hearty plate of food is served. He eagerly prepares to eat. A boisterous, bold man named Gans, flanked by 2 women, spots Nozaki. He calls out to Yajin, interrupting his meal. Gans approaches and playfully asks where he's been, wondering if he'd shacked up with a woman. Nozaki retorts that isn't what happened, explaining he was stabbed with a poison-coated knife and hospitalized. Gans dismisses it as a mere nuisance. Nozaki is appalled that this is considered an everyday occurrence for adventurers. Just then, another acquaintance, Kimman, is greeted as he approaches the table. Kimman examines the knife, remarking on its sharpness. He attests to its quality firsthand. He identifies the owner as Katso the beggar. Nozaki is stunned to learn his attacker was an assassin. Their other companion, Al, casually remarks that it's the usual. Nozaki panics, wondering why an assassin would target him. He questions if he angered the slum's boss. Al calmly reassures him that it was nothing personal, just a job for chump change. A sudden pain from his wound makes Nozaki wince. Al advises him to go rest, suggesting they celebrate his recovery another time. Nozaki agrees and gets up to leave. As he goes, Kimman and Al watch him quietly. Before he departs, Nozaki turns to thank Gans as well. Al waves him off. Nozaki finally leaves the tavern. Back in his room, Nozaki checks his status. He had hoped to level up from the ordeal, but he's still at level 15. However, he's pleased to see he has gained a new skill, poison resistance. After reviewing his unchanged level, he lies back down. He rests to recover. The recent assassination attempt forces Nozaki to a grim realization. He understands that no matter how perilous his situation becomes, he cannot continue on this path. If he does, he will inevitably fall into an abyss from which there is no return. He recalls that to surpass the level 15 ceiling, he must hunt a rank 4 monster, which requires a weapon made from black steel. With newfound resolve, Nozaki sits up, determined to get his hands on one. Nozaki arrives at what appears to be a weapons shop, the most splendid building he has seen so far. Inside, the shopkeeper shows him various weapons mounted on the wall. The focus of the episode is described as the art of an underling, with a particular black steel weapon catching the eye. Nozaki is stunned by the cost, comparing it to a luxury vehicle. The shopkeeper explains that only the wealthy, like a noble's child or a master of a large shop, can afford such items. Nozaki reflects that only the privileged class, who monopolize wealth and knowledge, can afford it. The shopkeeper pointedly asks if Nozaki is just window shopping. Leaving the shop, Nozaki examines a small hidden weapon he purchased, similar to a shuriken. He had only planned on scouting, but bought something anyway. He walks away, pondering his next move. He knows he needs more money than expected for a black steel weapon, and that saving honestly is not feasible. He realizes that the more money he saves, the more he has to protect, putting his life in greater danger. He needs to earn it all at once and wonders if there is a huge quest he can take on. He suddenly remembers the meeting for their next quest is today. Full of excitement, he rushes off. At a gloomy table, the party meets to discuss their next quest. Al begins to discuss their options since it has been a while. Nozaki interjects, stating that rather than earnings, he wants to focus on regaining their senses. Al glances at the quest options, noting they have 3 choices, though the target monster is the same for all of them. Suddenly, Gans gets up and walks away without a word. Al mentions they will be training during the long-distance quest. Al asks where he is going, to which Gans curtly replies he's going to the toilet. As Gans storms off, Nozaki asks Al what happened, shocked by Gans's terrible mood. Al explains that a harlot Gans was infatuated with recently went to another man's place, Riley adding that when the money stops, so does the relationship. Nozaki feels foolish for being so scared. A cheerful party of adventurers walks past, celebrating a bonus from a claybore quest. The man boasts about their trip to the countryside, and his female companion agrees she's glad she followed him. Annoyed, Nozaki watches the noisy couple, thinking it's the last thing he wants to see after Gans's rejection. The rowdy group sits at a nearby table, still celebrating their luck. One of them mentions that claybores don't normally appear in those areas, calling themselves lucky. Nozaki observes them, thinking they are too inattentive and careless to survive for long. A heavy boot steps forward with intent. Nozaki muses that while they survived today, their luck is bound to run out. His thought is interrupted by a furious shout from Gans, telling the noisy kids to stop yapping. A furious Gans glares at the other party. Startled, the other party turns to face him. The leader of the group angrily retorts, questioning what's wrong with being noisy in a bar and challenging Gans to a fight. Gans's anger intensifies. He grips the handle of his axe, ready for a confrontation. The entire tavern watches as the situation escalates. Just as things are about to boil over, Nozaki steps between the 2 men. He calmly tells the angry adventurer to calm down. He places a friendly hand on his shoulder, suggesting they all just get along. What appears to be a friendly hug is actually a calculated move by Nozaki. He neutralizes the threat without escalating the violence. The adventurer gasps for air. Nozaki internally recounts his technique, a palm strike to the solar plexus, timed with the man's breath, transmitting the impact deep into his innards. He then tells the shaking man to get a grip and sit down. Nozaki mocks the adventurer for trying to act like a prince in front of a girl, only to start shaking after being shouted at. To appease Gans, Nozaki offers him the adventurer's coin purse, claiming the man wants his forgiveness. Gans accepts, remarking that such small fry can't handle his presence. With a smirk, Gans wonders aloud why they received the money. As Nozaki and Gans walk away, the other adventurers tend to their shaken friend, who can only stammer that nothing is wrong. One of the women in their party glares daggers at the departing duo. Nozaki glances back, telling the adventurer not to glare and that he should be glad he's alive. Al waves, commending Yajin on a job well done. He says he'll handle the quest details, leaving the party to their own devices. Gans cheers, ready to go drinking. As he drinks, Nozaki reflects that he's grown to like Gans. In a city of lies, a straightforward person like him is precious. He feels it was a happy day where no blood was shed, and the other party learned a small lesson. However, a dark thought lingers, suggesting this peace was not meant to last. The scene changes to a dark forest where Nozaki stands tensely. He peeks from behind a tree, startled by something he sees. An arrow zips past his head and lodges in the tree beside him. An enemy shouts that he's here and orders his men to surround him. He grimaces, realizing he's been discovered. Nozaki realizes the gravity of his situation. Behind him, 8 adventurers are aiming for his life. He steadies himself, knowing